and I feel like now a bunch of like indoor kids have decided that they aren't like pieces of shit. They're actually socialists. I think that's what it is. Yeah, well, think about it. You don't hear about hipsters anymore, right? What do you hear about? You hear about socialists. Like all the hipsters put on those stupid little Russian hats and started like lazily fetishizing the Soviet Union.
It's true. I feel like everyone used to have like a tiny letter, like email newsletter, and now they've just transitioned to like getting a copy of like the Democrat Socialist like pamphlet in the mail. Like it's just it's the same group. It is a 1-for-1 switch.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, that was me for sure, 100%.
Did you ever have a tiny letter email? Did you ever send out email missives? Did you do like a poetry email?
I feel like I edited a chapbook.
Oh, I mean...
As you well know.
Tomato. I recently was trying to pressure my brother to tell me what his political leanings are, and his response was that he refuses to be put in a box, but if he had to say, probably democratic socialism. And I said, good job, Kevin.
That's good.
So I'm very proud of him. He's doing great.
That's exciting.
I know. I'm very proud of him. But also just to. So, have you ever received like mail from the Democratic Socialist America, whatever? Like, are you a card carrying DSA member?
No, I don't carry a card. And no, I'm not a member. I've gotten emails. I've signed up for a couple email lists, and there were these guys canvassing on the street with sick buttons, and they were like, "Oh, we're this socialist group," and I was like, "Shit, yeah, sign me up." And then I looked into them, and like they didn't exist. Like they didn't exist, but they had helped get someone elected to local office in Seattle like 5 years ago, and that was their only accomplishment.
Yeah, they're riding high on that one win.
And when I looked at the groups that they were like partnering with, I was like, this is probably not my scene.
What were they partnering with? Like Dunkin' Donuts?
No, other socialist organizations. I shouldn't go into it. I don't want to out myself as anything.
That's fair.
You know, I don't want anyone to know what particular denomination of shitbag, left-leaning shitbag I happen to be.
Yeah. I didn't realize that there were different like, genus and species, but I guess that makes sense. What's our intro? I'm going to Google this. Is this pinball?
You're Googling it?
Yeah.
Why don't we make the rules, Amy? Why don't you just say whatever you want?
Oh, no, I like having a script. Also, I Googled Twitter. I couldn't find it.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to Is This Pinball? It's the only podcast brave enough to ask, is that pinball? Is that do I spy pinball out of the corner of my eye? It's
There's
pinball. Is it pinball?
Podcasts. Podcasts have to have a consistent intro. That's the one thing I know about podcasting. They always got the same thing in intonation. It's how you set up a brand. I am confident.
Hey everybody, welcome to Is This Pinball, the only pinball podcast brave enough to ask, is that in fact pinball? I'm your host, Dylan Waite. With me are the other two hosts, Amy Langer.
Hi.
And Willie Caldwell.
Hey everybody.
Hey, welcome back everyone. Thanks for joining us all here. We've left a seat at the table for you. We're going to review the pinball table. Let's review some pinball shit, shall we?
Yeah, I know that you did the intro, but I still think you should go first anyway, and it'll be okay. I promise.
I agree.
Okay, because you guys are going to be surprised, but I'm here to talk about something that I love.
What?
Yeah.
Huh.
Come on.
No.
Yeah, no.
You?
I'm a big fan of this thing I'm talking about. So it's the FX3. It's the pinball. It's Zen Pinball's Pinball FX3. Again, it was May the 4th. It was 3 a.m. I was very high, and I was playing some old Marvel tables that I had bought way back when, before the show started, and I thought I should get some new tables. And coincidentally, I got one of the Star Wars packs. The Star Wars packs basically break down into two categories. One is the good movies, and the other one is the bad movies. The good movies happen to have in it a few like specialty tables. Like there's A New Hope, Return of the Jedi, Empire Strikes Back. But then there's like Star Wars droids, and it's like a sand crawler, and there's like C-3PO blows up, and you have to collect his pieces and get them back together and shit. But the one I want to talk about today was the last one I played, because it was the one I was least excited about. It was the Star Wars Clone Wars table. I've never watched the Clone Wars. I don't really know what they're about. I know there's like an orange girl.
Yeah, the CGI looking, the art style just creeps me out. It makes me feel weird.
Yeah, well, there's two of them,
Oh,
right?
everyone's too smooth.
Yeah, there's the one that
There's a
was
bunch
done
of
by
different Clone
Samurai
Wars.
Jack guy. That's a cartoon, and then there's like the longer one that's computer generated. And for whatever
Which
reason,
is still ongoing.
Oh, is it?
It's just about
Like
to end. I think
they just finished their last season. Yeah.
But
Anyway, everyone looks
they've
super
been-
gross, and it makes me want to gag whenever I see memes from that.
yeah, well, so the one I was most excited to play was the one about the most, the best movie, which was Empire Strikes Back. So that was the first one I turned on, and it's dog shit.
Well, why?
It's just
What's
like
wrong with it?
so
How
with
bad could a pinball game be?
Yeah, fair enough. But the movie ones, instead of like having challenges where like because what's fun about the Marvel ones is like, okay, you're playing Thor, you challenged Loki or the Giant or whatever, or if you're playing Moon Knight, you challenge one of his famous supervillains.
Yes. Dave.
Moon
Samurai.
Knight.
We all know Moon Knight's famous villain Bushwhacker.
Yeah.
We all remember him.
And Moon Knight, he's Jewish Batman.
Yeah. So the Clone Wars table is great. So right off the bat, when you launch the ball at the top, instead of like just launching the ball, your ball is in this like sort of space pod that explodes and then shoots your ball out of it. So like very cool right off the bat. And I'm going to say some things about it. One, it's a very high scoring table, which makes me feel like a big man.
Look at me now, Dad. Look at me.
My high score on most of the other tables is right around 90 million, which I know is not great. But my high score on Clone Wars as of now is 185 million. It's got it's hurry-ups, it's multi-balls. They're all very clearly accessible because each one is assigned a ramp, and it's just a matter of hitting that ramp X number of times to trigger the multi-ball or the hurry-up.
What's a hurry-up?
A hurry-up is when they'll give you a certain amount of time to put the ball in a certain place or complete a series of objectives, but the score counts down. And you can do it multiple times, but each time you do it, the score is lower and lower and lower.
I see. I've learned this from Pokemon Pinball.
At least I think that's what it is. It could just be like a thing that's not a mode that has a limited time to complete. But I think that's what a hurry-up is. I don't know. I can't buy any of the books, like I said.
Right. Whenever a hurry-up happens when I'm playing real pinball, I say, "Oh, what's happening? What's happening? Oh, what's happening?" And then it's over, and I that's it.
So, it's really, what's cool about it is it like functions like two pinball tables. There's like a smaller pinball table above it's like the top of the table has two flippers and the bottom of the table has two flippers, and you're using the bottom flippers to position the ball to a place where you can hit the ramps on the upper level. And so like a good combo goes from the bottom up a ramp that drops it into one of the flippers on the top level that flips it up a ramp that gives it to another flipper on the top level, And so you can string together these big combos really easily, and it's really fun and like flows really well. And when you're in the zone, it's just it feels great. But then there's this second stage that you can access where you go to a smaller table and you're like, the premise is you're like training the clones. And so you have to complete these smaller tables, and every time you advance, your rank goes up and you get points. And on top of all of that, there's the regular modes where they trot out some baddies, like the freaky deaky lady with the multiple sabers. You know, that woman with the long neck lady.
Oh, yes. Ventress?
And then Darth Maul's brother is there.
No, I'm right. It is Ventress. Oh, no. This is what other things could have been put in. Honestly, I could not tell you why I know that. It does feel like some sort of like sleeper cell thing where like the moment she's mentioned, I just have... It was somehow... Anyway, it's fine. Her name's Ventress. It's fine.
Yeah, it is Ventress. Yeah. So that's all great. I'm really enjoying playing it. It just feels really nice. It's easy to score big, which feels good. And it's probably the closest I've gotten to like really understanding how to like hit all the sweet spots on a table. So that's good. And like the goals are clear but hard to master. Like it's easy to figure out what you're doing, but it's hard to figure out how to perfect it. And that's
right. So it's the Dark Souls of sort of pinball, is what you're saying.
Yeah, well, something like a little easier than Dark Souls, but no. But so then the drawbacks, as far as I can tell, is that it's a little too easy to bounce the ball into the kickbacks sometimes. So you'll get fucked on just like a shitty rebound. You could easily get fucked. And then the other problem is that there's these Yoda sound bites.
Mm-hmm. Which never get old.
Is it Frank Oz?
I doubt it.
Yeah, did they get Oz for this?
It's probably just somebody's uncle.
Who can do a really good Yoda impression.
But the point about the Yoda sound bites is that like they're I assume Clone Wars sound bites, so they don't sound like Yoda as much as they sound like motivational posters. There's shit like a secret shared is trust secured or something like that. Or like my favorite is believe in yourself for no one else will, which is like not even like Jedi shit.
True, really.
It's just like, oh, you gotta do you, dog.
Well, that's sort of all media after the great Disney takeover is just sort of vague platitudes about how friendship will save us all.
No, I know.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to the 3-part animated series that's just about a cat really hanging in there.
If I could jokingly... Nah, forget it. I'm not gonna...
No, go ahead. What joke you got?
I was going to, for the sake...
I want to hear your bit.
No, it's not a good bit. I just... Look, fuck Disney. I don't know if that's a bit, but... I was going to say it a different way, but for the sake of it, we can... Anyway, so the point is, Star Wars Clone Wars Pinball, 5 out of 5 pinballs in a good way.
Wow.
And I enjoy it a lot. It's really fun. It's got me hooked. It's definitely my top 3 tables of the ones I've purchased, which is half the Marvel tables and half the Star Wars tables.
How much did that run you, bud?
Well, the Star Wars tables were on sale, so I got 10, 11 tables for like $12.
Yeah, that's a pretty good deal.
The Marvel package was like $20, but I was super high on pinball and I just had to do it. And that was 10. Like the thing is, each table, if you really get into it, you can sink hours into a single table. So it's like, it feels like a lot, but it's worth it if you're going to play it.
No, pinball is priceless. I get it. Look at us reviewing and enjoying a real pinball game. I love it.
Well, I'm ready to throw that in the garbage with my review.
Yeah.
Great.
What stupid trash have you brought us today?
So today I am bringing a game called Backbone. It's actually not fully released. I played the prologue, which was a free-to-play thing on Steam. It's put out by a group called Eggnut, which doesn't bode well for anything.
Can we pause there for a moment?
Yeah.
Eggnut?
Eggnut. Like, as put together as one word. They've... I guess they... I'm trying to see if they've done... Because they were previously possibly branded as Raw Fury Games, but they decided, nah, we have
that sucks too.
We have a better
that sucks
angle.
in a different way.
It does. But I'd heard things that people were... the internet was talking about different indie games coming out conceivably in the next year or so, and this was one that folks seemed relatively excited about. And so since the prologue was free, I thought, I'll give this a try. So it is a pixel art style game, kind of in a 32-bit aesthetic. It is a dystopian noir adventure wherein you play as an anthropomorphic raccoon, trying to solve crimes in a gritty, again, noir atmosphere. It's basically a point and click adventure game. So you're solving puzzles, you're hiding from people, you are taking on cases and trying to figure them out. Apparently, this is based. I just was looking at the description. The dystopian environment is actually Vancouver, British Columbia, which seems like an interesting choice for anthropomorphic creatures. But this game does a number of it does a number of things that people have already done that I dislike and continues to do them. Namely, using different anthropomorphic animals as examples of racism. Wherein they're segmented off by class. So, dogs and cats are better off than, say, raccoons or foxes or squirrels. A handy way to explore a complex thing. But I didn't like it in other things. I don't like it now. It just doesn't really do anything new or interesting.
Yeah, fantasy racism is always kind of a cop-out.
Yeah.
Where, like, the... What were you going to say, Dylan?
No, you keep going, but I want to earmark this fantasy racism thing.
Yeah, I don't know. It just sort of, to me, it always feels like, hey, you can pretend to be racist in a way that's okay because it's not real, or, like, trying to make a statement... But it doesn't quite land because because it's so inherently fictional. I don't know.
Yeah, so I felt this way about the game The Wolf Among Us, which was put out by I will never remember the developer. Yeah, Telltale. So based on the comic book Fable, wherein you are members of you are fantasy or like fairy tale creatures in a world that's also dystopian, but Snow White is a sex worker and you're the big bad wolf, but you're a bad cop. And it's just boring to me. It's the same thing as with any sort of fantasy series that uses the abuse of women or children as a shorthand for, hey, this place is bad. To me, there are just so many other ways to explore how things can be bad. And whenever it's used in this sort of way, I'm like, oh, this is written usually by white dudes, and I can't speak to the folks at Eggnut, but given their name...
I mean, their company name is Eggnut, but naming stuff is hard. I mean, our podcast is This Pinball because we suck at naming stuff, so maybe we should give them more credit.
It's
true. No credit.
So who knows? This team could be made up by a whole number of different people, but the shorthand that they're using is something that I find very typical to... specifically fantasy works made by white dudes, which is, hey, how do we show that this world is bad? We give you some sort of fantasy racism or sexism or other ism to play, thereby showing that it is indeed a bad place. There's not a lot you can do with it. It's not actually really exploring anything. It's just reinforcing hey, this is bad, right? And I think at this point apparently we all can't agree that racism is bad, but do I think that this game would actually provide anything else that's meaningful?
Who think that racism is good
gonna
play a video game about cats being mean to dogs and then be like, I was
yeah,
wrong?
Oh, I should really change my ways.
Well,
right,
what would
Dylan jump in here?
What would Aristotle say, right? He'd say everything in moderation. There is a mean that is a good, and between it there are two extremes which are bad. So being racist, bad. not being racist possibly also bad? I think it's worth considering.
That's ironclad logic.
I'm just saying there's a mean between the two, and it could be closer to not racist than it is to racist, but I think we need that little bit, that little dash of racism.
No.
Oh, this is so close to being a New York Times opinion piece. We are almost there.
Oh, God.
So other than that, Backbone is... I mean, the story is fine, and obviously having this be a free-to-play, prologue, there were going to be some hurdles with it, so some of the controls felt a little glitchy. Like, I ended up having to force quit the game because I got stuck on a screen and couldn't seem to exit. But all that's excusable for something that they were putting out, again, for free, just to give a sense of the game. But it's just, even the twist that kind of happens later is just kind of predictable. So I didn't find really anything about it super interesting. It gave me vibes of different games put out actually by a different development team that I actually really like called Destruct Team. I actually have to look that up to make sure that's true.
What do they do?
So they put out games. The game that I first played by them was a game called The Red Strings Club, which similarly had a pixel art approach. And was a game wherein it's been a hot minute since I played it. But it specifically had to do with free will and moral decisions and the kind of things that all these other games try to purport to play. Like a gritty atmosphere, you're solving a crime, you're interacting with people, no one's quite what they seem. But it was a game that it's a game that asks you to make moral choices throughout. And then about halfway through, it has a very quiet scene where you're talking with someone that kind of subverts every choice that you've made up to that point and actually really is, really interrogates the player in a way that I hadn't experienced in these sorts of games before, in a way that actually kind of threw me back a little bit. And I actually had to quietly leave the game and step away and just think through my choices. But I really like the Red Strings Club. They put out a bunch of other short games on itch for the most part, specifically usually around body autonomy and steampunk aesthetics for the most part. But the body autonomy parts in general are usually the things that I get most excited about. They like androids. They like thinking through what androids are and trying to figure out exactly what... You know what? I don't really have it fully laid out. It's been a hot minute since I played the games, but every time Destruct Team puts something out, I always play it and I always enjoy it, and it feels like something that actually is playing with science fiction in the way that I like it, which is positing a question and then building the world around that rather than the reverse. So rather than it being we're going to create a gritty atmosphere, what happens in this gritty atmosphere? The games or even the literature that I tend to gravitate more towards when it comes to science fiction and fantasy is here's the world as it is. We're going to make one change to the world as it is. What would happen in terms of everything else? What's the ripple effect from that? Which feels a little bit more science-based? Not science-based. A little bit more... I've lost my train of thought.
Scientific.
Scientific. Thank you.
As in hypothesis, theory, testing the hypothesis. I see it. I see where you're going.
All those things. All those elements. Anyway, Backbone, in terms of pinball, it has 1 out of 5 pinballs. It also sent me into a little bit of a spiral as I tried to figure out exactly what I think pinball is, as I played this game that I didn't like and looked desperately for any sort of pinball elements that I could assign to it. And I realized that the only thing in all of these episodes... Well, the only thing I've said done in all these episodes is apparently my metric for pinball is it has secret rooms. I listened back to some of the episodes, and that's been my main focal point is if something has secret rooms or a secret. I actually really do love secret rooms.
Who doesn't?
And in that case, it gets 2 out of 5 pinballs. Other than that, I have no idea what pinball is, and I don't know how to evaluate anything.
2 out of 5 in a bad way, right?
2 out of 5 in a bad way. Oh, absolutely.
All
so
right.
it's not very pinball, and it's just not very good.
Correct. In the great bell curve of how we are now evaluating pinball games.
You heard it here first, folks. Amy hates eggnut.
That is the first statement I'll stand behind.
So I've taken some notes while Amy was talking, and I have a few things that I need to get out before we move on. One, Amy, have you played Papers, Please?
Yes, I love Papers, Please.
Okay,
it's
good.
one of my favorite games.
I'm not trying to have a whole conversation about it. I just figured you should play. Have you played Obra Dinn?
Yes. Lucas Pope is, I think, a real life genius. Both games were exactly what I wanted.
Perfect,
we should talk briefly about Papers, Please, though, because that's actually a perfect example of what I'm talking about in terms of playing around with morality and like moral choices in games and things that have consequences.
Yeah, that's why I brought it up, because that seems to like really just hit the spot in terms of what you said you were looking for.
Right. So for anyone who hasn't played it, Papers, Please is a game where you are a border control agent at a fictional Soviet bloc-esque country. And literally the entire game is people come to the border station, give you papers, and you determine whether or not their papers are valid. But within that, of course, there are people who are trying to cross the border to get to safety, whose papers are forged, that you can try and decide whether or not to let through. But if you let them through and you... basically, there's a penalty. There's a money penalty. You dock pay if you let folks through with improper papers, which at the end of each like day cycle, you go to a screen that tells you like how much money your family has to stay alive. So if you lose pay, you are losing money for your fictional family in order to like self-persevere. And as the game continues, more and more impositions are put on the paper. So it starts with just the passport, and then it's like a passport and like a vaccination form. And it's a passport, a vaccination form, and like an ID document. And then there's like a whole other thing where you can do x-rays if folks don't seem to have a gender presentation that matches their documents. And it just becomes like a whole other thing. So it becomes very easy to make mistakes. So it becomes very easy to lose a lot of money. So as folks are approaching you and saying, hey, please let me through. I need to be let through. You know, I have someone waiting for me on the other side. I know my papers aren't right. It becomes increasingly difficult to allow those folks to go through because you've already lost so much money just by making mistakes. In the game itself, I think that there was like an early Polygon review that called it a game about drudgery, but like in a positive way. And that's what it really enforces a certain like horrible boringness to how one can be a terrible person or enforce, or rather than being a terrible person purposefully, how one can enforce structures of oppression just by the fact of like having to make it through the day. And so like it's not the most fun game, I guess, but
no,
it is.
I was gonna say I played this game too, and like I appreciate the artistry of it, but also it's just such a huge bummer that I was like, I'm good.
Yeah.
And so I would give this 0 pinballs if it was possible, but I guess
Sure.
I'll give it 1 pinball because it's not pointless fun. It's important and sad and scary. And
Do you think it's
pinball
the
is not any of
anti-pinball?
those things. Yeah.
I think
like
Papers,
the
Please.
mega pinball. Oh, sorry. Go ahead,
Mega
Dylan.
pinball, the anti-pinball.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. Papers, Please does such a good job of doing everything that fucking oh my god, that farm game. What the fuck's it called? Stardew Valley. Everything that Stardew Valley tried very half-assedly to do, Papers, Please like leaned into really hard.
Well, I think
Right.
Stardew Valley just wanted to be a fun Harvest Moon ripoff.
No, but it
and it
did.
did that very well.
It did. Well, yeah, it did. But no, but think about it.
Well, the social commentary is tacked on, but that wasn't really the focus.
Well, that's what
ever.
I'm saying. Like Papers, Please, yeah, is great. And you know, people talk about like that Dragon Cancer all the time when they're talking about like
Right.
like interactive experiences moving into the realm
I
of
don't know
art.
what that is, and I've never heard that before in my entire life. What did
Oh.
you just say?
That Dragon Cancer was a game. Yeah.
No, go for it.
Go for it, Dylan.
It's
a game that was.
No, both at the same time, and I'll like fade the audio in between the headphones, and it'll be like a psychedelic experience.
It's a what the guy that designed it, his baby was diagnosed with cancer.
Yeah.
And
like it's a really heartbreaking story. It's like
no,
really
it really is
terrible.
Which is why it's been on all of the like human interest podcasts,
Right.
like Radio Lab or Invisibilia, or like all of those podcasts that are like, there was a story that you thought you knew where it was going until tragedy made people grow.
Right.
And it's like totally one of those stories, which is it is what it is, you know. And I'm not trying to disparage the creator or what they went through or anything like that. But like at the end of the day, a game, it's about the baby having cancer and about basically this moment where the father, you know, surrendered his faith to God and just had to pray for the baby and hope that things would work. And so, like, the interactive experience is one of helplessness and surrender,
Right.
and not a game.
Yeah.
Like,
No, there's no interactivity component of it. Like you're kind of watching the thing happen as it happens. I actually haven't been able to play it, mostly because I found it too upsetting, which is kind of the point of it. But it wasn't an area that I felt that I could access at really any point.
yeah.
But it is interesting to see like the visual novel aspect of certain games, which I feel like That Dragon Cancer falls more into, versus games that like create emotional responses through actual gameplay. I'm kind of thinking of something like Celeste, which is a very difficult platforming game whose main character has an anxiety disorder. And as someone who does not like playing really difficult games, I found it actually a really effective, and also who is a very anxious person, found that like a game that was built to be difficult so as to showcase like that feeling of like tension in one's body that one has like during a panic attack. It was a relatively effective mirroring technique in a way that felt just so smart. Again, just the knowledge of like how playing a game influences one's body and one's posture and how one interacts with like oneself, and building a game whose main point of existence kind of leans into that so as to like showcase, be like, here, you see this thing that you're feeling, this is the thing that we're trying to have you feel. Feels to me like the main point, or like when games are effective or games that I like playing the most are games that are able to lean into that the most.
Yeah.
Kind of recognizing like the you know, the medium being the message sort of thing.
Do you know Magica or Helldivers?
No, I don't. What's that?
I'm an asshole because I don't learn the names of studios, but they're done by the same guys. Magica was there's two of them. There's Magica and Magica 2, and you play these like little wizards. It's a twin stick where you use like magic, and every magic has an element assigned to it, and depending on like you can store elements.
What's a twin stick?
A twin stick is like a top-down shooter where one stick controls the right stick controls the direction of your character, and the left stick controls where they're going. Or I got that backwards.
Or what they're shooting? Is Binding of Isaac a twin stick?
No, kind of. Kind of.
Okay, sorry, I just don't really know what that is, but continue.
I'm trying to think of a game. You've played it, like those like top-down like wave attack zombie games that all come out every like 2 months, where like you know, it's yeah, Binding of Isaac is kind of like that. I mean, functionally it's a little different. I'm not doing a good job of explaining this. But anyway.
Do you know what it is, Amy?
No, I don't.
It's like a twin stick shooter. So you one stick points the direction of your character and the other one moves them around. So yeah, like Binding of Isaac is like that. Binding of Isaac is on a 90-degree axis.
I understand.
So if you had full 360 rotation of Isaac, that would be like what a traditional like twin stick shooter would be.
Okay.
But you can like store your elements, like you have a thunder spell, a healing spell, a fire spell, an ice spell, whatever, and you can like store them and then like make combinations to access new powers. And so it's like a puzzle game. It's like half like wave attack. You have to like beat the enemy mobs, and then like half like puzzles based on what combination of elements you're going to use. And
oh, cool.
Yeah, and it's really cool because it, you know, it feels like what it is. Like you're combining these elements on the fly to make like, okay, if you combine like ice, death, you'll get like a killer ice ray that like freezes enemies and does a lot of damage to them. But then they made a game called Helldivers where it's got like heavy Starship Troopers vibes where like you're sort of modeled after the Nazis, but you're supposed to be the good guys, but everything's very jingoistic and like authoritarian feeling. But you're supposed to be defeating like these evil aliens and these like bug creatures and these cyborgs. But when you're on the ground, you can like order on the fly like relief packages with like special weapons or ammo or healing items or whatever it happens to be. But you have to do it by punching in a sequence of like directional pad inputs. And like the better the item is, the longer the sequence is, and it gets really frantic. So, like, you'll be running and shooting and trying to control what direction you're shooting and frantically mashing the D-pad to, like, try to, like, get them to send you this pod that has ammo in it. And it feels very tense and very, like, you're multitasking in a way that feels correct for the situation.
Right. It gets you in the headspace of, like, trying to figure out, like, all these things at once. Like, it makes you frantic in the way that you need to be like in that particular like emotional situation.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Also, I just realized, this is an aside, but I realized that I in the realm of not knowing developer names, the group I was talking about with the Red Strings Club is actually called Deconstruct Team, which is a horrible name to say out loud, but it's but they're great
at naming their stupid garbage.
But they had a short game called Eternal Home Floristry, which is like a really quiet game where you're like an ex-hit person who's recovering in like a in a gardener's shed and slowly like picking these last flowers that all have different meanings that you then send out to different people in order to try and either quell or incite people to either like quell violence or incite acts of violence. And it's like really like it only is really one screen with text, and it's very nice. Anyway, Deconstruct Team they're great. Red Strings Club, great. All of them, great. Love it. 10 out of 10. Pinballs.
No, Amy, God,
what?
You can't
have 10
boost
pinballs.
A rubric by 5 and then give a full score.
You're just muddying the waters. You've made
nothing from
fools.
the Pinball Theory Corner.
All right. So that was the first one of my notes.
Yes, please.
Is this okay?
Item number 2.
Is this because
we
don't have to do this?
No.
Okay, so the next.
I hate talking to you. That's why we're doing a podcast together, because I can't stand it when you say things at me.
All right, the next
number 2.
The next 3 points are in the realm of fantasy racism. So first I want to talk.
Strap in, everybody.
The first one's quick. I just want to talk about knife ears in the Dragon Age universe. Shit sucks. The elves are all called knife ears.
Gross.
And that's their like KN word, if you will.
Oh God.
Gross.
I hate that.
Gross. It's also so close to like. It sounds like something out of Land Before Time with like long necks instead of whatever that dinosaur is.
No, but it like
whatever.
It phonetically sounds like a real slur, which I'm sure is why they picked it, which is even worse.
Yeah,
real bad.
I would not have wanted to be around that table discussion, like really trying to hone in on like how close they could get phonetically. Like that's not a fun game to play.
So the next one is also dicey, but very rewarding, which is Fallout. You guys know the? Have either of you guys played extensively the Fallout games?
You know, I actually haven't.
So. Do you know about the radio, Amy?
Maybe, probably. Tell me again,
Okay.
just in case.
So when you're
Tell our
wandering,
listeners.
yeah, sure. Hello, listeners. When you're wandering the wasteland, you can turn on a radio on your Pip-Boy, which is just the menu, and the radio will play a handful of songs that are like, basically like it's usually like what like 50s,
It's like
60s.
50s appropriate, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, mostly like 50s stuff.
Mostly like 50s. There's some outliers, but it like in New Vegas, it's all country music, or like really like dusty like Western cowboy shit. And then in like in 4, it's a little more swing. It's a little more, because it's New England, baby. But there's this song that's
they love their swing dancing in New England after eating a big
It's
bowl of
true.
chowder.
It's true. It was
Yeah, I
it was
don't know.
actually one of the great burdens of growing up in New England was having to go from swing band to swing band performance. It was
Yeah.
Well,
I like
okay.
those frilly socks you got though.
Well, there's no Boston music because those people sound like hyenas. So, so in Fallout 3 and in Fallout 4, there's this song Civilization. Do you know about this song?
I don't.
no.
It's basically it's a song from the perspective of a man who was born and raised sort of in the jungle, where a missionary is trying to convince them that the American way of life is right on, and it's sung by an Italian man.
All this is great.
So it's the chorus is like bongo bongo bongo, I don't want to leave the Congo. It's pretty bad.
Oof.
Yeah.
Yikes.
It's really bad. And I had been playing Fallout 4 for a while, and I was like, there's got to be someone on the internet talking about that this song is so racist, and it's just here. And the internet did not let me down. Because I found one message board on GameFAQs where people were like talking about this song, and it was
2020 GameFAQs, what a wasteland! I'm sure.
it was populated. There was one guy that was like, "Guys, is this my friend said this was racist? Is he crazy?" And they're like, "That song's not racist. There's racism in Fallout towards the ghouls."
No.
The ghouls being people that look like zombies because they were affected by the radiation. So their idea was that the only racism that existed in this fantasy setting was fantasy racism, and that any real life racism was sort of incidental and not to be taken too
Right.
seriously.
Right.
But sort of
Right.
how can
Fallout,
that
which notably
be?
takes place. Yeah, that's.
Right,
mean,
because it's
Fallout
like
also-
time sort of froze in the 50s. I don't know.
No, I know. Look,
Yeah.
I mean, well, technically not. I mean, technically the bombs drop in what, 2076? It's just like
Right, but everybody was doing 50s nostalgia like in the 80s.
yeah, there was like a retro futurist thing happening. No, but I love the gaming community because every time you think something's awful and you be like, "Yo, just checking in, is this awful?" Their response will be twice as
Is worse.
bad. Yeah. Always. Inevitably. So
Yeah, it's a fascinating thing where they're like where like rather than actually talking about like real actual racism like still affecting real actual human beings, so like what we're going to do is create a terrible sort of like pseudo humanoid, and they're gonna be the real recipients of racism. It's just like it's a weird thing to then also say like, well, the people who are like experiencing racism now in the today world are therefore like equitable to like ghouls, or in the case of like Backbone, like squirrels, I guess. Like it's just like it doesn't quite, it seems to put like additional commentary on the thing that reinforces the racism. They're like, well, actually these are like it doesn't seem like a fun line to toe, you know? Like it seems like a bad line to toe that would be done poorly 99% of the time.
I see it both ways. Like on the one hand, I could see how if you're building out, if you're the guy that's all hopped up on Tolkien, and you're like, look, I gotta world build super fucking hard, and then I can write as soon as I just know who everyone else was for the last 1,000 years, and then I can figure it out. And if you're like doing that, and then you're like, okay, there's got to be some sort of tribalism, there's got to be some sort of iniquity. How do I represent that? And like, okay, if you land on some kind of fantasy racism through that, that's understandable, but nobody in fantasy universes is ever like, we're super racist and that's fine. Like, there's never a fantasy world where everybody accepts the fantasy racism. There's always a guy, usually the protagonist, that's going like, this is bad though. So like,
right.
It's hard because if you're world building, you wanna make it credible, and like prejudice is incredibly realistic. So like that, there's got to be some, and it's just how do you manage it in a way that doesn't seem like shit. And unfortunately, most people don't get that far. They just put it in there.
Right.
Right.
Also, like, for example, just like bringing in any like people of color to be your writers or directors might be a way to like help hedge against it. You know, just like in a slight way. But, you know, that apparently people have deemed that too difficult to do in the long term. So they just gave up.
That's far too political for the gaming community. You know how they hate
true.
politics in their video games? Except for the backlash about Ellie not being hot enough in Last of Us 2.
No, that backlash is about her being a lesbian.
No, but it's also like there's a whole thing about how Western games like don't make their women sexy like Japanese games.
No.
But that's somehow apolitical, right?
Right. Oh, I mean, let's not mention the fucking meltdown that happened after Mortal Kombat 11 revealed their fucking female characters.
Oh my god. I didn't even
there wasn't enough cleavage.
Right.
Yeah, and you know what? Like, even if I'm just thinking from a like I'm trying to fuck my video games perspective, like people that look like humans I could see in the wild are infinitely more fuckable than like Sonya Blade's inflatable tits from Mortal Kombat 10.
But they worked so hard on that physics engine to make them bounce just right, you know?
That Dead or Alive, Dead or Alive physics engine.
Right.
I was gonna say there was like 5 games perfecting the perma jiggle.
This actually reminds me of.
Oh god.
So can I talk to you for a moment about something Bea's playing?
Sure.
Yes.
Do you want to tell us who Bea is?
Yeah.
For the listeners.
Can I group huddle? Should I bring Bea into this? Should I give her a headphone and bring her on mic?
Absolutely.
Bea, put the other headphone in your ear. We're talking about Akiba's trip.
Hi.
Hello.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you
doing?
I'm good. I'm listening to the whole one-sided conversation Dylan's been having. So it's been pretty fun. Interesting trying to decipher
like you don't have enough Dylan ranting in your life.
Oh, not at all. Like I'm with him 24/7.
You guys aren't allowed to make fun of me at the same time. It's too much.
So, did you mention the game that we were playing?
So Bea's been playing a game called Akiba's Trip. I was reading while she was playing, so I only caught bits and pieces, but I think she ought to give you sort of a rundown of the main gaming mechanism.
Yeah, lay it on us.
All right, so I was looking for just like anime, super anime video games, just because I was bored last night, and I went into Catherine first, also because it was like sexy anime. Let's just play a little bit. But I decided to switch from that to Akiba's Strip. So the premise is a laboratory makes this sort of man-made vampires called Synthesters. And they are... sunlight hurts them as any vampire would, so the way to defeat them is to fight them and take their clothes off.
Of course.
So
Naturally.
exactly. So essentially, you're just like this. You're working in this world where like it's like a world for misfits. And every character that's in the neighborhood is called something like privileged skank or or otaku or boy love fan, and I don't know, it's very like anime fan or whatever. And
It's in the Akiba district of Tokyo, which is the like anime manga district, or it's the electronics district. I read all that in the footnotes.
right. So everyone treats this world as if it's kind of like, I don't know, like a godsend for outsiders. And I haven't gone in too deep, but so far it's pretty interesting how like you're walking down the street and you're either fighting some ruffian on the street that's misbehaving and you're stripping them and they just run scared, or you're stripping down the synthesters, which are the man-made vampires, and they just vanish into thin air once they're exposed to the sun. So it's very interesting. I have no idea what the story is yet. I spent hours yesterday also very stoned, so I might be missing something. But so far it's a terrible game and I love it.
I will say that in this whole like evening of like terribly named things, Synthester is very good.
I like it.
Yeah.
I think it's good world building.
It's hard to say. It's hard to read. There's nothing good about it.
And you can tell, like, because I have it on English dubbing, so you can definitely tell that, one, it's either been recorded as we are right now with, like, a makeshift recording studio in someone's home, and two, like, they can't really pronounce synthesters as well. It's pretty fun. I really recommend it.
How many pinballs would you give it?
How many pinballs would I give it? Honestly, because I'm literally jumping from one section to another following missions, I would say a 3 out of 5. So it's 3 out of 5
that's pretty
pinballs.
good.
Just because I'm jumping, I feel like I'm an actual pinball, just jumping from one corner to the other.
Ooh.
So you actually, as the player in the real world, feel like you are the ball.
I am the ball.
new
I am
take.
completely the ball. And the game is my box.
So just one thing I want to
Love
say
it.
about the game that I appreciated is that you have to be a male the first time you play it, although I hear later you unlock the ability to cross-dress. But if you play it through a second time, you can change your avatar to being female. But the tutorial, everyone you fight in the tutorial is male. So by the time you beat up a woman and rip her clothes off in the game, it's just a matter of course, and so it doesn't feel weird or bad the way it would if it had been the
It's just the
initial
way the
tutorial.
world functions.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, now that I think about it, once it's actually put into words, it's kind of awful.
No, but they do a very good job of easing you into it in a way that makes it's sort of like the frog in the pot. By the time everything's boiling, you're like, well, this is probably fine.
Right, you kind of do get desensitized to it after like the 10th person that you're stripping in the middle of the street.
You can also combo stripping.
That's some social commentary. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
You can so every person has 3 items of clothing. They have the headpiece, the body piece,
As we
and
all
the
do.
Yeah.
Right.
It's upper body, lower body, and head. And so once you've beaten them up enough, they'll be like in strippable mode. They'll like have like a purple aura around them. And so if you've got multiple enemies that you can strip, you can chain the strips together and you get more like points
Oh my
based on how
goodness.
big your combo is.
Oh right, and I think we haven't explained, like, you are playing as a synthester who has been rescued from the laboratory where
Yeah.
they make them.
You're like
so
Angel from Buffy.
Exactly. You're like Angel from Buffy, or Blade if Blade was like stripping people in the streets.
Angel
But-
from
Snipes
Buffy
might have.
absolutely was doing that.
Yeah.
1000%.
Yeah. Ooh. So yeah, you're playing as a synthesizer, so you also get damage in your clothes, but the way that you heal, like as in a regular game, like kind of getting that your HP up, you would just like de-wrinkle your clothes. So you would press one of the buttons, and that the way that you heal, he would just stop and like clean himself a little bit and then go back to fighting. So
Just
you're
do
not
a
really
fast perm
healing.
press.
Right, so you're just fixing your clothes. You're not really healing, and that's
Yeah.
actually an interesting little mechanism there.
This is a Japanese game.
Very much so.
What's happening in Japan, Dylan? Because also we watched this anime called Kill la Kill that's all about clothes
yeah.
and how clothes
Oh,
are
yeah.
oppressive.
Yeah. Oh, we've
And
all
I'm just
watched
like-
it.
Such a
Yes.
good
Oh,
show.
you watched it too?
Yeah.
I did. I watched
Yeah.
it long after. I think it was like your original recommendation. It was like at a neo futurist like hangout where both of you were like, you need to watch. You won't want to watch this. You'll think it's bad, but just watch like 4 episodes, and it was good. It was a good recommendation.
Yeah,
Yeah.
And the thing is, like, as I was playing Akiba's strip, I was thinking of Kill la Kill, and I was like, what? There's a correlation here. But the difference is that Kill la Kill is actually a solid show. It's actually good storytelling. This one makes no sense other than the fact that you want to strip people in the middle of the street.
Well, I will say Akiba's strip is from 2014. I think the original came out in 2012. It's a port from a PS Vita game.
They all are.
my
What
goodness.
was happening with the Vita also? That's
Yeah.
another question we have to investigate.
Oh, you got a PS Vita. Well, no, but the other thing is Kill la Kill came out in 2013.
Yeah.
So it was in the
Oh.
water at that
So
point.
are
I think Bea's trying to sign off real quick, so...
All right.
All right,
Bye,
y'all.
Bea.
Thanks for having me.
Good talking to you, Bea.
Great talking to you, too. See you later.
All right. Bea signing off. She is our horny Japanese correspondent.
That does make it sound like she is the horny Japanese person.
No, she's our correspondent on horny Japanese games.
Yes.
Correct.
Luckily, PS
I look
Now...
forward to her corner.
PS Now has a ton of horny Japanese games, including this gigantic series called Atelier. Atelier? I don't know.
How do
They're
you
like
spell that?
Atelier.
Atelier, like the French word for like a.
God, enough with the
Attic?
French, Amy. Come on.
No, she's right. Whatever
Trying to
you're about to
bring up
say,
the
it's
line.
got to be
Synthesizer.
right. What is an
But atelier,
atelier?
like a loft, isn't that it? Whatever. It's fashion folks use it, right? Like
It's
atelier,
about
whatever. It's fine.
It's about like female like female alchemist ladies who cherish their friendship, and you have to like complete missions and recipes to like unlock cutscenes where they cherish their friendship together. And there's hundreds of these games. There's hundreds of them. There are like 3 for
Well,
full
yeah.
price on PlayStation 4 right now. Like they're just some factory has someone like chained to a radiator and they're just like cranking out these games.
You call this horny? Hornier.
Amy, do you want to have one last little talk about fantasy racism?
Yeah, I feel like especially as 2 white people, we're really equipped to really dive into this.
Well, in this case, we uniquely are equipped to deal with it. Have you heard of a book called Save the Pearls?
No, what is that?
It's a young adult novel set in a dystopian fantasy universe in which the sun has
Strong
grown
start.
so violently hot that the only people that can go on the surface are people with melanin.
Oh no. Okay, good start.
So there's a caste system based on how dark you are, and the darkest people are at the top.
Oh, nothing like how can we reimagine racism? What if it were white people? Who I'm
Yeah.
guessing are the pearls in the title. I don't mean to jump ahead, but
No,
are the
they
white people
are.
the pearls that need saving?
Yeah, of course.
Oh,
And so the main character is a white girl who, has been working in the like underground mines or whatever, and has been oppressed by black people. But so the
How
worst
else
part
can
of
you understand how other people might experience racism unless you imagine yourself as subjugated? That's the only way.
So,
This is the only
Amy,
way to do it.
if you look up the cover for this novel, the cover is a woman's face. It's half white, and the other half is substantially darker, because the way white
Dylan.
people are able to go on the surface is by applying a sort of cosmetic.
No.
It's blackface. They have to put on blackface to go to the surface. Yeah.
No.
And
No.
this is a YA novel, Amy.
This is the sort of fantasy novel that, like, fourth grade Amy would have written, like, when assigned to write like a fantasy novel about, like, real world things. And like fourth grade Amy would, growing up in Connecticut among just a ton of white people, would have been like, how I'm really going to like subvert things. I'm gonna write a thing where it's white people that are actually subjected to racism, and I would have handed it in to my teacher, who would have looked at it and gone, no.
Well, so to that point, this got published, which is raises all kinds of questions. But the author, upon receiving the inevitable backlash, had no idea. She had no idea. She was like.
Also, I mean, the thing about the cover besides like the aforementioned face, is that in the like there's like vaguely like what's it called, like jungle fronds around it, and then like panther eyes in the background. Like it's just a like a Ferris wheel where each cart that goes by, you're like, oh, there's more look, there's more racism. Oh, how
Well, and the upper cast in the novel, I've done a lot of research on this novel. I have not read it because it's intriguing how like I'm like baffled by how bad it is. But the upper caste in this society are called Coles. And yeah, and so someone posited, like, okay, if the white people are the lowest rung on the totem pole, why are they named after a precious material, and the upper caste named after something that is a good deal more common and has connotations of dirt and
dirtiness?
Yeah. How does it happen?
It's also the level of like internal pride that I can imagine this person feeling, like having written this and being like, I did it, I solved racism.
Yeah.
Now they will all see.
Well, like, I know how it feels when you're writing something and you've got like all the themes are working, or like you open it with one line and then like by the end you're like, I've brought everything full circle in a way that's not too trite. So I imagine she was probably just riding high off of feeling like it was all coming together.
And then when they presented the cover art to her, she was like, this is also good.
This is perfect.
This is exactly what I had in mind. You got it. It does make me, I do have like my own conspiracy theory where like some of these books are just published because people know that they're going to cause such a ado online, and for good reason. But like, I guess it's like I know that it's not true. I know that people are just that much of idiots and are like, yes, absolutely, we did the right thing here. But there is some part of me that like I guess hope, I guess it is, that like what actually people are doing is just like terrible capitalism, where someone found this manuscript and was like, yes, we're going to put this out there and the internet will hate it and they will buy so many copies. Like it is.
Yeah,
it's fucked up when the cynical explanation is the most hopeful.
Right. But that's where we are. This is the way that we're experiencing the world right now.
Yeah.
I can't stop looking at this cover. I still have it up on my computer screen, and every once in a while I glance over, and I'm like, it's honestly, it is hypnotizing.
So the first time I tried to tell someone about this, I was mid-sentence, and I was like, did I make this up?
Is this a fever dream?
Like,
It does
What's
seem like a
happening?
fever dream.
It's baffling to me that it exists.
I'm very fascinated by the YA market in general, mostly because I feel like every other week there's some other person coming out with a YA novel that everyone's like, oh no, this is very bad. And I
Yeah.
literally don't understand how it keeps happening, specifically in YA circles. But it's fascinating. There's also, if you Google Save the Pearls, like in the image thing, there is just an image that says coal is dirty. And I'm like, oh no, oh no. Oh no.
Oh,
It was from the
man.
Goodreads page for that. Oh, I will go to the Goodreads page for this.
Oh, I've been all
Very
up and down
curious.
that Goodreads page.
Hey, it has 2 stars.
Yeah, that's hopeful.
2 full stars. Yeah.
Look, nothing
Wow.
nothing on Goodreads has any more than 4 and any less than 3.5. Anything you've ever heard of. Like Ulysses is like it's a 3.7, or like
Yeah.
you know, the complete works of Shakespeare 3.9, maybe a 4. But like Save the Pearls has a 2, so that means there was a strong concerted effort to bring these numbers down.
I will also say, okay, so in Revealing Eden, there's also the section next to it that says readers also enjoyed, and I would like to read a couple of these titles for you.
Please do.
Birth control is sinful in the Christian marriages and also robbing God of priesthood children.
Oh,
That's one of 'em.
my
That's the
God.
title of the book?
That is the title of the book.
That's like
Oh
one of
my
those
God.
17th century titles where they were like, just use the first line.
There's also A Parent's Guide to Preventing Homosexuality.
Oh my God.
And Melanie's Marvelous Measles, which is Melanie's Marvelous Measles takes children on a journey to learn about the ineffectiveness of vaccinations. And to
No.
know they know how to be scared of childhood illness.
Wow.
Because this algorithm is just putting books together that all have terrible ratings, but I do like to imagine there is something about like the title of readers also enjoyed.
No,
that
I mean, I
truly
think the
brings me-
crossover is there
Yeah.
between anti-vaxxers, people who don't want gay sons. What was the Christian
Oh, there
something?
were two that were against homosexuality, and then one against
Sure.
vaccinations. But yeah, I guess it makes sense that if you were like, actually, the people who are experiencing racism are white people. That does actually make a lot of sense.
Yeah, no, for sure. That's that conservative MO is just like, we're the real victims. Have you heard about the plight of the Irish? Like, okay, shut up.
Also, just the 4th book on this is Ivanka Trump's Women Who Work Rewriting the Rules for Success. So you can get the whole package. Sorry, Melanie's Measles. The cover for it is so joyous. It's just a little girl with arms outstretched, cavorting in a garden, obviously
That's so
enjoying her
funny.
brief foray with measles.
Here, let's sign off. Who wants to do it? I could do it. Although, before we sign off, this is the only thing I brought to the table today, and it will be real quick. I Google searched sexiest pinball games, which led to a lot of message boards, and the first one I found, Pinbot02 posted this. Oh boy, this is gonna be a good topic. For me, it's Pinbot, because I'm a woman, and this is probably one of the only sexual-themed pinball games geared towards women. I've seen many say they get turned on by Bride of Pinbot and Xenon, but I'm not them. So anyway, what do you think is the sexiest pinball game? And Listeners, if you want to email us what you think the sexiest pinball game is, you can email us at isthispinball@gmail.com. And I'd like to give a special thanks to Dan Humke, who makes all of our music. And that's all for now. Bye-bye.
Oh, wait, real quick.
Bye.
Special thanks to Bea Miranda for being our horny Japanese correspondent. That is our correspondent on horny Japanese games.
Yes.
Our
Very good.
Yeah.
I'm sure we'll hear more from Bea.
Great. All right, bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Hey.
Great.
Stop.
You know what? Speaking of internet, or are we trying to wrap up? Because I got a bone to pick with internet racists.
Sorry, just one singular bone to pick.
Well, I mean,
Yeah, let's hear your bone.
I mean, this is one bone among the bones, but I'm so pissed that
Among your bone pile.
Why don't you throw us a bone?
the alt-right
Yeah,
stole Roman history and culture from fans of the antiquities, and it makes me so mad.
You should write a letter.
You're not left. Yeah.
Look, I just want to be able to enjoy a nice book about Augustus Caesar without feeling like I'm indulging some sort of neo-Nazi impulse.
You're just putting like old shopping bags over the covers like you're in elementary school. Like just read it on the bus, be like, it's not what you think it is.
No, but you know what I should have done
Just
that with?
reading it behind magazines.
I should have done that with Infinite Jest, which also has been stolen by the worst kinds of people.
It's true. Did you lug Infinite Jest around with you? Were you reading it on public transportation?
Oh yeah, I was reading it everywhere I could because it was so long and I needed to get it done. And you know what? It's pretty good. It's not amazing, but it's pretty good. And I think that's the most sane opinion someone can have of it. Because
How many pinballs is it?
Infinite Jest,
Yeah.
probably 4 out of 5 pinballs because of the the way it's written is very back and forth, very scattered. It bounces you around a lot from perspectives, and it's got a momentum that doesn't let up
Nice.
until it does.